All right, this must be the week of AIOs. We have another one announced today. Sapphire is getting into the standalone AIO game with a rather arachnid look about this one. Welcome to Machines and More. You know Sapphire for being one of the premier board partners for AMD's graphics cards. You know, you've got the Pulse, the Nitro Plus, and yes, they've done hybrid coolers with their Toxic series, so liquid coolant isn't that much of a stretch for this company. Now, the coolers on their cards are always among the highest performing cards within a particular chip series, and I think that's thanks to the large fans and the excellent heatsink design. But this S240A that we're checking out today and the S360A are standalone CPU coolers, and that is a first for Sapphire. These fall into their Nitro Plus product line with branding and an aesthetic that's distinctly Nitro Plus. And the retail availability will coincide along with the launch date, which is today. Sapphire did provide the test unit today free of charge for testing purposes, but this video isn't sponsored and they aren't privy to the testing methodology and don't have any insight into this content prior to the release. And a big thanks to them for letting us check it out. So let's dive right in. If you take a look at this pump head, man, it is so sick. It's got the spider look, legs going down the sides, the Nitro Plus robot face logo, and the way it lights up is really nothing earth-shattering. But the way it looks when combined with the raised cover and the brushed metal look, it's quite a fashion statement. Moving now to the fans, they're very similar to the fans on the Nitro Plus RX 6000 series cards with what they are calling the hybrid fan blade design. The 12 blades sit within a rim. They are interconnected by a ring that's notched out at certain points, and it's definitely a consistent look compared to their graphics cards. And this kind of ring design fan has been popular, just like the last AIO we checked out in the PL240 from Cooler Master, and it's kind of like the P12 RGB also. In the box, you'll get the rad and the pump assembly. This is an Asetek unit with a Gen 7 pump. It's got articulating elbows at the pump head, so it's flexible. Copper cold plate with pre-applied thermal paste, and you'll see the locking mechanism and hardware and the cold plate. This all pretty much looks the same as compared to other Asetek units. The total height of this pump is a little taller because of that spider-looking cage at the top, and the assembly sits at about 59 millimeters, so make sure you have enough clearance for that. For this one, the LGA 1700 hardware is included, so if you are rocking out on Alder Lake already, this is ready to go without having to request hardware. Now, this might be the best packed radiator that I've seen. It comes with protector plates on it. Really nice gesture here. The two fans from First D. It's a very cool looking fan design, but the blades do have quite a bit of play here. And a special cable connector delivers both fan power and the ARGB signal to it. You'll notice that the two fan connectors don't have the same socket, the 6-wire fan being the one that gives you the RPM readout back to your motherboard. If you get the 240 version, you'll also have an unused socket on that cable. That's for a third fan that's included with the 360 version. These connectors have a specific adapter cable that connects them all back to the pump head. And yeah, there's a lot of cables here beyond that one. There's a pump header cable, CPU fan header cable, SATA power cable, 3-pin RGB header connector, and one that connects down to any other ARGB devices to pass that signal through. Now, in practice, these weren't terrible to manage. At least they mostly all came out of one socket, and that can be somewhat managed through the mounting hardware rather elegantly. But if you ever use an Asetek unit, this is pretty typical for it. Because they are ARGB, you can get some really neat lighting effects. The pump head looks really good, and if your case is one where this can all be readily visible, I think this will display very nicely. Installation for this unit is similar to any Asetek unit, and I really like this type of 4-point mount for AM4. It uses the stock backplate with standoffs, and this firmly attaches to your CPU with even pressure. Now, once installed, we can take a look at the noise normalized thermal performance. One thing is, because of the noise characteristics of this pump, which I'll get to in just a second, I did have to limit it to 70%. And this is fairly typical with Asetek units where above that level, it'll get clicky and very audible. And that's the highest I would ever consider running this pump. Here I'm testing with the usual CPU for this type of test, the Ryzen 7 3700X here at targeting 97 watts at 4.3 gigahertz. I'm testing at 2 noise levels, and for the first, which is roughly 1 decibel above the noise floor, the fans hit 1040 RPM. And compared to some of the other higher performing units on the market, the performance does seem to be more on par with the similarly aesthetically driven ML240 Illusion with its stock fans. This is the same pump as that on the Fantex and the X53, so it really comes down to fan quality. That's the distinction here. At the next higher noise level, the fans go up to 1360 RPM, and at that point it does pass the ML240 Illusion. It does seem to be more middle to bottom third of the pack right now when it comes to thermal performance. If you look at it another way, the noise gap between this and the X53 is about 2-ish decibels when you equalize the thermal performance. Speaking of noise, let's just take a quick listen to the fan at varying RPMs and then the Asetek pump, because I'll want to give you an idea of where you might want to limit the pump's RPM. So right around that 70% mark is a good stopping point, right? The fans do have some headroom also above where I tested, but above that 60% mark is where you start hitting the point of diminishing returns and you get a lot more noise for very little thermal performance. I tried to get one, but Sapphire didn't commit to an MSRP, as they stated the price is going to fluctuate too much from region to region and different retail outlets. That is why you might want to give such a recommended price point, but okay. I'll have to list retail prices down below when it does become available, but let's do this. I'll frame my recommendation this way. If we take a look at two comparable units to this one, in the NZXT X53 and the ML240 Illusion from Cooler Master, both have decent performance, similar form factors, and both of these retail for about $120 US. Given that, I don't think this comes in at a price lower than either of those, and especially since this is a newer first generation lower volume product where Asetek is the OEM with the Gen 7 pump, I can only assume it's going to be higher than that, and let's just say maybe $140. And lower than that, yeah, I think this AIO might be palatable. I think some of you, especially if you have a Sapphire card, you might find this really distinctive look worth paying the premium for. I really like it, and I just think that pump cap is so cool, and if you're going for an all Sapphire build, this would complete it. Even though the fans are squarely average, that may not matter to you if you have a case where noise is well dampened and you can just run them a little bit faster, or if you're planning on swapping them out anyway, well, you know, it doesn't really matter. If you do swap fans, do keep in mind that you will have that cluster of cables coming out of the pump head still, and some of them will not need to be connected. And having all those Nitro Plus goodies in a build, that's got to be worth something, right? For a more performance-oriented build, I think you might think twice about this one, since it's really more biased towards looks. But for a first-generation product, I think Sapphire's design team did a really good job. And this one sets the stage for, hopefully, for some improvements and a future generation to come. Really, it does come down to these fans. If they do a little work there, this is going to be one unit to contend with. And Sapphire's really good with fans, as you know from their GPUs. So I think this has a lot of potential. So that'll do it for this review. If you're interested in upgrading fans on your AIO, stay tuned, since we do have that round 2 120mm fan comparison coming up, and I will be doing it on this AIO. So please give a like, subscribe. Links will be down below. Thanks for watching.